Hello and welcome to the Comfort Connections podcast. In this episode, The Important Role of Professional Caregivers, we're joined by Maryann Lakey, a professional caregiver at ComForCare Home Care of Vancouver, and the recipient of the ComForCare 2022 Caregiver of the Year. Welcome, Maryann. Thank you for joining our listeners today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here today.
Maryann, could you please share with our listeners how you began your career journey as a professional caregiver?
One of my grandmas was a home health nurse, and she gave me my first caregiving client job. I enjoyed helping her live in her home independently. I learned that I liked it because I did it every weekend on my senior year of high school. After that, I just had part-time gigs where I was helping others. And then in 2012, I went to make it full-time, and I couldn't because I wasn't licensed as the laws had changed. So I got licensed, and then I became a full-time caregiver ever since 2012.
Thank you so much for sharing about your career journey to becoming a professional caregiver. Please share more about how professional caregivers support the older adult and their family caregivers, and what a typical day is like.
Normally, when I meet them, I just tell them that I'm an extension of their own hands, and I try to give them support that they need, and I give respite to the family caregivers to make them stay as independent as possible and still have productive life. So when I start shift, I knock on the door, that stuff. And then when I come in, I just pay close attention to their surroundings. And then I introduce myself and all that. And I look for things like if they have a need in the home, but without saying anything, I just want to make sure I can get it taken care of. And then this is what I'm thinking as I'm talking to them and as I'm engaging with them and asking about their day and what plans they have for the day. And if they have any appointments, I help them with their appointments. I get them ready for their appointments or whatever's needed to prepare them. And then, like, if they have anyone special coming to visit, I make sure the house is clean, snacks are ready, stuff like that to help them. And then if they don't have anything going on, I try to engage fun activities with them.
Thank you for the overview of a typical day and the important role you play in supporting activities of daily living for those you're caring for. Can you please share a client story with our listeners, specifically about how you helped an 85-year-old client who had terminal cancer?
He was a special case. I loved him to pieces. He had a life, and it devastated him to the point where he can't do that life. The work that he had, he worked from home. He was just having trouble doing it. So me and a couple other caregivers, we tried to help him out because it made him happy. And when he was happy, he was healthier. You could see that he was happy, even though with the terminal illness that he had. And he, toward the end, we had one last thing to do, that he wanted done with his company, and he had no energy. He couldn't hardly get up out of bed. We were using the wheelchair more. It was just really hard on him. And I told him, I said, we are here for you, your family, the other caregivers. We'll get this done so you can relax, because he was working up until like maybe a week before he had passed. And we helped him do that, because sometimes he would just hand the phone to me and say, answer the call, I can't do it. And I'm like, I'd talk to him and his customers and tried to help him the best I could and ask him and, stuff like that. But in the end, I knew that it helped him because he had a sense of calm when he knew that his business was going to be okay. I mean, that's one of the main things I I strive for is to make sure, like I have a client now that loves to do hobbies, and he once told me that he lost the motivation to do it. And I just said, well, no, it's just a downtime. You'll get it back. And I tried to encourage him. I had him watch a few videos, and after that, he's thinking of things to do with his wood. He's building things with the wood, and it's totally turned that around. So, and I knew that when I would leave at night, he was happy because he got to accomplish something that day. And then there was another client I want to talk about. It was the 100-year-old birthday, and I helped him for roughly about 3 to 4 years. And so we got pretty close. I miss him terribly now still because we always watched the game together, whether it be the Mariners, the Seahawks. He'd always look forward to me coming so we could talk about the game. He can tell me what's going on. He can help me fix something that he couldn't reach across the room. And, that bugged him that day. I remember one time I had to call to get him help, and he had to go to the hospital. This was before his birthday. And he was crying to me, saying, don't call. And I'm like, I have to. You need the help. And he's like, no, because then I won't come back. I won't have my 100-year birthday here, because he lived in an independent living, and rarely did they have residents that had their 100-year birthdays there. So it was a big deal. And he saw them have injuries or something and never come back. And he was so afraid. And I called and I said, I promise you're going to come back. And he did. And we gave him a really good birthday. I remember that day like it was yesterday. And he was more alive that day than he was for like a week prior. It just really helped him, and he was just so happy.
Maryann, these are such inspirational stories. From your perspective, what are a few qualities or skills that professional caregivers must have in order to be successful?
They have to read into the details. I'm going to take an example of a disease like Parkinson's. Like if I come into a client and they have Parkinson's and they are shaking like really bad, they're having like a really bad day, then I know that they had a bad night and they need to sleep and they need to rest so their body can regenerate and get back to that normal. And details, that's how you see those details, is you just see their need and you try to anticipate what they're gonna need if something does happen. And I just try to anticipate everything so then I'm ready for anything.
What is one other quality that you think makes a successful professional caregiver?
Empathy. You have to feel. You have to feel what the client feels. That's another thing that it's hard to describe because I just see it and I know what I need to do.
These qualities certainly underscore how professional caregivers really make a difference for those they serve. Maryann, as we near the end of this episode, please share any other thoughts regarding why you chose to be a professional caregiver.
I love when I'm done on a shift and I'm driving home. I like it when I don't second guess myself as I'm going home. I know that, of course they thanked me for being there and everything, but I know that what I did there at that time comforted them, encouraged them, I engaged with them, and they were happy when I left. I just sense of, I knew they were going to be okay, because sometimes there is times when you go and you don't know. I like those times when I do know. And a lot of the families that talk to me, they're like, you engage with my husband. Like no one's engaged with him before, to the point where he doesn't talk much, but we have conversations back and forth. And she remembers, it's hard for her to remember a time when she had a back and forth conversation. And every time I'm there, I would get it from him. And she would just see that and go, thank you. Because, it brightened his day. That's why I'm there too, is to help the families. I like to help them as much as I help the client.
Thank you, Maryann, for joining us today and sharing your insights as a professional caregiver with our listeners. Visit ComfortConnections.com to download complimentary resources, view our show notes, and access the episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app. Thank you for listening and helping older adults live the best life possible.